All right, I think I see that everybody has locked into their audio. People are here. I see a couple of more connecting to audios. So I want to make sure everybody was able to get in here. Okay, this is looking good. All right, well, good afternoon or good morning to those on the West Coast. Uh, uh, Welcome to the MPA Race and Ethnicity Summit, Session 2. I am Caleb McKinney. For those who don't know me, I think I know probably most of you all that I see on this call, but I am Associate Dean for Graduate and Postdoc Training and Development at Georgetown University Medical Center and an Associate Professor in the Department of Rehabilitation Medicine. And so this session of the summit will focus on race and ethnicity equity considerations around becoming a postdoc. And it's a really great follow-up to those of you who were able to attend the first session that we heard that really leads up to that point of career transition. And so as a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be available soon on the NPA website. And then more information on the MPA and upcoming events are in the chat. And so I was supposed to put up a slide and I totally forgot to, so I'm just going to tell you the housekeeping information that you needed to know. And so as you've probably realized, each session has its own unique link and you just need to log into each unique link to access that session. The sessions are recorded. You all will be on mute, but you can definitely engage with us in the chat, ask questions, leave comments, share our collective expertise. We may be the panelists today, but we are not the experts. We know there are tons of you all with collective expertise around these topics, so feel free to leave comments in the chat and any questions as well. And the recording of these sessions will be provided later on. So I am joined today by colleagues who have a range of perspectives and experience on this topic. Devin Horton, Aileen Fernandez, and Antonio Robinson. Welcome and thank you for joining me. I will allow each panelist to properly introduce themselves in a moment. And so during this session, we will be focusing on both the applicant and the institutional perspective when it comes to the postdoc transition, particularly through the race and ethnicity lens. And so things like what should graduate students be considering in their decision-making? How should they assess the mentors and institutional contexts that they're pursuing? For institutions, how should they be recruiting? And how should they be modeling cultures of inclusion to enhance retention of postdocs from historically excluded racial and ethnic backgrounds? Because at the end of the day, diversity just becomes a number if you don't have the proper cultures and frameworks in place to ensure the success of postdocs from all backgrounds, particularly those from historically marginalized backgrounds. And so we will have a semi-structured conversation for about 30 minutes, see if any questions pop up in the chat that we can address from the audience for the rest of the time. So definitely, like I said, feel free to leave us comments and questions should you feel inspired. So for my first question to the panelists, just to get things warmed up, this should be a pretty easy question. I'd like for each of you to introduce yourselves, your institution, your role, and then highlight any relevant activities that you participate in that are pertinent to this conversation about becoming a postdoc. And so we'll go in order by your last name, alphabetical order by your last names. And so we'll go Devin, Aileen, then Antonio.
Thank you, Caleb. Hi, everyone. My name is Devin Horton. I am the Graduate Diversity Officer for STEM disciplines at UC Davis. What that entails is partnering with campus leadership, departments, faculty, staff, whomever, to develop programs and policies that enhance the experiences and the potential for success for graduate students and postdocs from historically marginalized communities. So it's in my title. I think in terms of relevance, I sat on the, oh, that's okay, Caleb. I see your note. I sat on the UC-wide, so I'm with the University System in California on a UC-wide postdoc working group for a couple of years. And we have a few initiatives at UC Davis specifically that up until very recently I was a part of. We don't have a postdoc office, so it's individual folks who are working on tending to this work. So sometimes I partner with them, even though lately my primary target has been graduate students.
Then Aileen, although F is before H, but I screwed that up, but go
It's
for
okay.
it.
I didn't even realize I was so excited to be sandwiched between these two incredible people. This is great. So I'm Aileen Fernandez. I'm currently a postdoc in my third year. I'm at Yale School of Medicine in the Department of Pathology. And I specifically work in translational oncology research, really focusing in on biomarker discovery and development, with immunotherapy being my main focus. My background, I'm going to go way back for my background and just mention that I actually started from a community college standpoint because I graduated high school without the ability to pay for college. So I'm Afro-Latina, first generation, low socioeconomic background, you name it. I'm a lot of these different intersecting identities. But with that, I actually was able to be a part of the Bridges to Baccalaureate program that led me to SUNY Purchase. From there, I fast forward ended up in a Bridges to Doctorate program that was through the University of the District of Columbia and Georgetown University, this consortium program. So I'm very much a product of the Bridges programs and proof that these programs really work. And these are programs that are targeted for underrepresented minorities. And I got my Ph.D. from Georgetown in tumor biology. I graduated in 2019. And since then I've been postdocing, and I like to say I came in hot to Yale, and I co-founded the Black Postdoc Association here, also founded a racial justice subcommittee within the broader Postdoc Association, and have been a part of a lot of other initiatives, including being one of the founding co-founders of this Intersection Science Fellow Symposium, which brings postdocs who are really passionate about diversity work, like diversity, equity, inclusion work, and who are excellent scientists, really emphasizing the URMs and bringing them on a stage, who are trying to go to faculty and just trying to change the narrative that sort of exists around, if you do diversity work, you're just not as good, which unfortunately is just a common thread that we're hearing. So yeah, that's my background.
Awesome. Well, thank you all already for the introduction. I'm just as excited to be beside some awesome heavy hitters in this field, but also folks who are very much invested in doing the work to bring other folks who are going to do great work in this field. So for me, my name is Antonio Robinson. I am a recruitment and engagement program manager at the Stanford Office of Postdoctoral Affairs, which means I have the awesome opportunity to work with a variety of different postdocs in a variety of different capacities. I work most directly with PRISM, which is our postdoctoral recruitment initiative, and sciences and medicine. I'm throwing out all the heavy acronyms, and I'll share some links, I'm sure, at some point so you can all catch on. But I do want to make sure everyone knows that, yes, I think our role is to continue to support and engage the postdoc community here at Stanford, but also to bring in folks who are going to continue to enrich our diversity, and the fact that this academy that we all love in a variety of different ways has a lot of room for growth as well. And it has a lot of room for people who are going to continue to improve it in the years ahead. So with that, thank you, Robin, for dropping some of those links. You're already making life a whole heck of a lot easier there. Very much excited to continue to talk with folks, continue to learn from some of our, we'll say, fellow practitioners in the field, and also see how postdocs and other folks who are doing this work are experiencing these realities right now. So super excited. I think that was a few minutes, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing how else we can engage and have more further conversations about this.
Thank you all for the introduction. So we learned a lot in the last session about conversations around some of the sort of career exploration, career identity formation aspects that occur during graduate school that get to the point of, should I be doing a postdoc, or how should I be preparing for a postdoc? So I think that that's a really good segue into my first question for you all is, what are some best practices to consider while you're, a grad student, perhaps later on as you're thinking about your transition, when you're preparing for a postdoc? Let's assume that that's the route that you decided you wanted to go in. In particular, where can applicants find help in selecting the right institutions, the right research groups, when you're thinking about this through a race and ethnicity lens? And so we could go in my same made up alphabet order. That's going to be our inside joke for the session for those who came late. Devin, would you like to start?
So that's me first. Okay, so that works. So if you should decide to choose a postdoc, so just thinking about my own experience, which is not that different from most folks who look like me, you may find that you're not getting support from the places that seem the most likely, but I think there are places that may seem unlikely that will really be helpful in your decision, like how to identify folks you might want to work with and things like that. So normally you go directly to your research mentor, but I recommend that you think about your committee, your actual thesis committee, who on that committee might have connections and be helpful for you in terms of making connections with people you might want to work with and being the connector for you. I also think about your undergraduate professors. Many of you had these folks write you letters of recommendation, and hopefully you've kept at least in some mild contact with those people. They tend to be really, really helpful. Like we all went and got PhDs too, so we know people too. And I think once you get to grad school, you forget that population of people is still there and can still provide support to you. So I recommend that. The other thing, and I was actually in the middle of pulling up the link when Caleb called on me, but that actually works out fine. There are so many programs, which I know Antonio is going to talk to you about PRISM. There are so many programs that are designed to diversify the postdoctoral field, right? Postdoctoral scholars in general. Apply to those programs. That includes PRISM, which Antonio will talk about at Stanford. The University of California has a thing we call PPPF, so the President's Postdoctoral something fellowship. It's insane. The name is long, but it's meant to diversify. And then there's also ERACTA. So if you are biomedical sciences, NIH has the ERACTA program, which frankly, I think is the safest way to apply and end up being with faculty who I would consider change ready, right? Because in order to be a part of that program, your institution had to write this ginormous grant and had to demonstrate a history of supporting minoritized and underrepresented students and postdocs. And so typically, if you apply through those kinds of places, you're gonna run into folks who are supportive, who maybe have a similar approach towards many things that you care about. I applied through ERACTA. I got some really fancy postdocs, high quality postdoc offers, and with people who had a mission towards equity and justice. And so, oh, thank you so much. Jenny, you're the best. They're putting links in the chat. I appreciate that. So yeah, I would really encourage you all to tap into your networks. And I don't just mean your PI, I mean all of the people around you. If you've made interdisciplinary mentoring relationships, so sometimes you might find a mentor outside of your field. I mean, as a Black woman, believe me, my sociology friends know another scientist friend who knows another scientist friend. So we all network, even if we're in different fields. So if you have mentors who are not in your field, tap them too, because the chances, I mean, there's only like 6 degrees of separation between educated Black people. I'm going to guesstimate that that's probably true across the board. So I would absolutely tap those folks. And with that, I will be quiet. ERACTA is fabulous. Just so y'all know, you don't have to worry about funding. It's really great, top notch.
I love this audience because we are putting you all to work in this chat. All of these resources that you all are providing, I'm sure we'll find a way to collect all of these as we're disseminating information from this session. Aileen?
I loved everything Devin just talked about, especially I, as a graduate student, didn't know about any of these. And because of the spaces that I've come into now as a postdoc, now I'm learning about all these different programs that exist. So start, if your institution doesn't have the resources, like start Googling, start finding, ask people at conferences, I think is another good place to just start talking to people. It's so awkward to network, but it gets more comfortable, I promise. Just start introducing yourself to people. Tell them, I mean, I met my current postdoc mentor as a third-year PhD student. I was at a conference and I was like, well, I'm not ready yet to go to do a postdoc. But with that, I emailed him right after. And when I was ready to look for a postdoc, I just emailed him directly. And that's how I already had that connection. Something else to think about, just best practices. One of the things I didn't really recognize until further into my postdoc was imposter syndrome. I had never even heard the term. I didn't know what it was. And once I heard it, I was like, oh, I have that. Okay. And once I recognized it and really embraced it, that's when I started to realize my potential. Because as a woman of color, I mean, I have been repeatedly put down. And this is like from a very young age to last week it happened again. And it doesn't even matter how many lines I add to my CV, I just am continually just thought of as less than. But one thing I need to recognize is that people have their own bias and I can't control that, but I can control my imposter syndrome by at least recognizing it and putting it at the forefront. The other big thing was forming a community. And I think my community as a postdoc is even bigger now. And that's another way to sort of find these resources, because like Devin said, especially, like, we talk to each other. So there really is like 6 degrees of separation. And that's how you learn about all these different programs that exist. And it's really taking advantage of our network that exists out there. And it's not an exclusive network in any way, really trying to tap into that. The only other thing I want to say, because I want to make sure that to pass it on, is thinking about your translatable skills from now. So that's one thing. Is I remember when I first started thinking about my next steps, I was like, well, I know how to pipette and I can run a Western blot. And I was really thinking so technically when I should have been thinking broader. And once I sat down and started thinking, I'm like, well, I'm really good at communicating. I'm really good at project management. I'm really good at hypothesizing, and carrying through an experiment and going through the twists and turns and going with it. So start to think a little bit more broadly about yourself as a graduate student and how that can really be impactful as a postdoc.
Antonio?
Absolutely, yes. I think this has been a very enriching conversation. I'm happy that we dropped some of those important links about the affinity groups. One of the responsibilities that I actually have, but also one of the true privileges I have, is working with each of the affinity groups here at Stanford. And I think those affinity groups are some of the folks who do a lot of the important work around building community for postdocs or for even incoming postdocs. So when we talk about recruitment, it is my job and opportunity to really partner with some of those co-chairs and leaders to really ensure that the folks who are coming to this campus to learn more about Stanford actually see and understand and can learn from, not only talk science with, but also talk about where to get their hair done at, talk about where to potentially go on the weekends or where to actually enjoy a good plate of food. Those are some of the most enriching conversations that I know our community has been able to have. And it's because of those affinity groups and because of some of the postdocs who have really championed the importance of them. So even to Eileen's point, if you don't know of a postdoc group on your campus, create one. Figure out what it takes to go about actually installing that sort of community for others, because it goes a long way in ensuring that people not only come, but also that they stay. And I feel like that's the second part of this conversation about recruitment. It's retention. It's actually ensuring that people, if they're intended to be there for more than 1 year, do just that. And similarly, if they're intended to be there for a year, so that way they can get their training and learning and move forward, making sure they have the connections in place, both in the community and elsewhere, to be able to go out and do that. So I think, yes, continuing to reemphasize that community building piece is something that, for this question in particular, I'm very happy we've already done. I feel like it's also just as critical to figure out what groups or what organizations exist nationally. Something that I think Stanford has done a good job of is trying to ensure that our postdocs are aware of what groups they can become a part of, such as M.P.A, such as some of the other, we'll say, larger organizations that have a lot of important initiatives, webinars, conversations going on anyway. So getting our postdocs connected to that, so that way they can better learn and better support the professoriate overall, but also those who are coming in to contact with them on a daily basis. So all the important links, all the important acronyms and things that I think have been shared are definitely worth jotting down, so that way you can take them back to your team or your PI, or talk about how to get those updated websites and such wherever you're currently at.
Thank you. So one of the points Aileen brought up around imposter syndrome actually is a great segue into the next question that I have. Because when I'm engaging with grad students who, have similar imposter threats about sort of how they frame their expertise and their kind of power that they have with this transition process and these applications. At the end of the day, postdocs are in really high demand right now, because work on the faculty side of things as well. And I can guarantee you that senior grad students, like faculty, are really, really excited to talk to you about their postdoc opportunities. And so definitely one way to reframe some of the imposter threat that you may have going into these interview cycles is, coming at it from leveraging the power that you have as an applicant. To leverage the skills that you have that are in really high demand that these research groups are really, really looking for. And so to that end, postdocs are in high demand across a number of different disciplines. And so my question to the panelists, and I'll switch up the order this time so that I'm not putting the pressure on Devin every time. How do you recommend that postdoc applicants leverage the power that they have in bringing value to the research group and institution while they're applying for these positions? How do they leverage that power that they have? How do they realize the power that they have? Aileen, can we start with you?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And as you mentioned, it's, for me, the first thing is address that imposter syndrome. Look at it head on. You have that little voice in your head, and this goes across all races, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm not quite good enough. And imposter syndrome does not discriminate. So let's recognize that to begin with. But the truth is, it will make you undersell yourself. And when you have imposter syndrome on top of and you have microaggressions on top of that, and macroaggressions, right? Because you definitely have those. It makes that voice a lot louder. So I think it's easy to undersell yourself. And in academia, we have this idea that, like, you're so lucky to be a postdoc in institution X and institution Y, which sure you are, but they're really lucky to have you because you're skilled. You just went through a whole PhD program. You're coming in hot, right? You're coming in and you're not gonna have to learn. The learning curve is not as large, as long. So I think it's really important to remember that they're also lucky to have you, and that it's okay to interview with multiple people. It's okay to ask for what you want. It's okay to try to negotiate. I tried to negotiate. It didn't go well, but I did try. But one thing, I never thought to ask for moving costs. That was something I learned later on that some of my current colleagues were able to do. But I didn't think of that because I was like, well, no, like I should just be so thankful to have this opportunity to go there. I think it's important with that, remembering your power that you have, and you don't need to settle and go anywhere. You can ask the questions you want to ask. Does the science really excite you? I have to say, like, being in this postdoc has like reinvigorated my love for science. And I'm so happy I chose the place that I decided to go to. Take into account that you can ask questions. You can ask to speak to the other members of the lab. You can see if you can contact the former members of the lab. You can ask what professional development looks like. You can ask, okay, so where do your postdocs go from here? Do they go to academia? Do they go to industry? I came in not really knowing what I was going to do. And I very intentionally asked these questions. I think it's good to all the resources that Antonio just talked about and that Devin talked about too. Also, thinking about those, asking your PI, are they aware of these things? Are they able to connect you to the people who know the answers to these things? I think all of these are really important to do for yourself because you're incredible and you should really recognize that.
Go to Antonio.
Great. Yes, I think the first and most important thing that came to mind here for me is networking. I think the power of building and having and maintaining and sustaining a network is ever more apparent when you're moving forward in a postdoc search and such. One of the things that I appreciate that we are able to converse about and truly talk to our PRISM postdocs about is the fact that the time to start searching for your postdoc is not right when you're finishing up your PhD or right when you're thinking about that next step. It's quite a few months before that. It's 12 to 18 months out. It's actually when you need to start building that rapport with faculty, with other individuals and such who have been in that lab that you potentially intend to go into. It's having conversations with people who are in the academy and potentially in industry. It's figuring out what is potentially the best avenue for you and figuring out how to go about getting there. I feel like one of the resources that I do have in the chat that I'll go ahead and share that I forgot to mention previously is that of our Research University Alliance. So for those of you who aren't aware, that's another great opportunity for people to begin working with the mentor, begin building that network and learning potentially even early on or as a grad student, what opportunities could exist for them as a postdoc. There's been a great opportunity for us to be able to see some of those RUA scholars as they visit the various campuses that are part of that organization and then, a part of that association, so that way they can truly learn more about what each campus has to offer and what the various faculty or community members on site or inside of that campus can also provide. So I think there's a lot that can be gained from truly building that network when you are able to, and that's using the programs that are available to you. That's even if you're not someone who's invested on social media quite yet, maybe scouring a website from time to time or scouring a hashtag or what have you, so that way you can learn more about what is being shared out or what's a current trend or what's being discussed in your particular field or across the, we'll say, academy as a whole. So I think there's a lot that truly, we'll say, building a network truly entails. It's not just figuring out who you can add on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn and also following up with a few folks. It's having the conversations on panels such as this and building that network base to see who you can truly learn from and who you can potentially partner up with. Some of the resources that we're sharing, they are not top secret. They are also things that we would love to be able to talk offline about. So if you're hearing something that really speaks to you and you're like, well, how do I get my campus or my grad students or potentially my office to be able to buy into something along these lines, reach out to one of us. If you don't have our emails, continue to please just reach out individually so that way we can share that information. But I think this conversation is one that really entails allows itself to be able to truly go forward. So after a conversation on a panel such as this, talk about how do you build a community? How do you build a network such as this? And how do you continue to make sure that you can pass it along to others?
Thank you. And I did see Devin made her way back. So if the MPA team can give her a little pin so that she can pop back up on my screen here, that would be good.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Xfinity chose today to do something all day, so my internet is in and out, but I have a portable Wi-Fi that's AT&T, not Xfinity, and yet here we are. Anyway, so one of the things that has always frustrated me about the American system of work is it being the protocol for overseeing, hiring, and all these things being descendants of slavery, right? Which is to say that we devalue the people we need to produce. Right? Because if you devalue them, they feel like they need you. And then you have this really codependent relationship that works out in the best interest of someone, even if it isn't the person you're supposed to be training. And I often find that postdocs end up in this space because you're not quite a grown-up and you're not quite a kid anymore. And yet, like, you are needed, as Caleb mentioned, you are absolutely needed, but you're treated as if you'd be lucky to be bothered, and that the folks would be bothered. And that's just BS. At the end of the day, the stereotype threat is not something that's internal. It's something that has been impressed upon you. So you need to walk in the door remembering that they have to create that, not they, the individual people you are interviewing with, but this is the outgrowth of the system, right? This is how capitalism and all of these things work. You have to have these sort of layers of things. And so even as a graduate student, right, you're taught to like revere your faculty, and even in the face of the most dire abuse, and then you become faculty and now you're revered and now you have to make a decision, about how you're going to train people and engage. And so I know I say all that because that's the backdrop of what's informing or what's creating all of this hesitance and self-doubt. You don't have to doubt yourself. Like Caleb said, postdocs are in high demand. You owe nobody nothing. You can have your pick of the litter. Believe me, if you think you're not going to get a postdoc, not true. And if you are in spaces where people are making you are reinforcing that old way of thinking, get out of those spaces and get into new ones or create new ones that reinforce your badassness, period, right? That's just what it is. I have a link to this thing I just came upon like 2 days ago, which is really apropos. It's called the Insane List of Job Market Questions, and it's very specific to academics. With the idea being, you hold the power, you just don't know how to ask the questions in such a way that really makes it clear that the power sits with you. And so I want people to remember, like, you need to network. Remember that you are needed. Research doesn't move forward without postdocs. It just doesn't. It doesn't mean you have to go in and be a jerk, but you have to know your value. And that means negotiating salary, negotiating, relocation expenses. I literally, today is November 17th, and I put it in our notes for the group. I was looking for the University of Professional Women something. They had this negotiating document like some years back teaching women how to negotiate in academia. So I'm looking for that in my email, and no joke, I find an email from November 17th of 2008 where I'm telling a friend that my PI has told me I can't negotiate my postdoc salary. The one training me, not the one hiring me, the one training me is telling me that I can't negotiate. If I had listened to him, I don't even know where I would be. So you need to know and trust yourself. And the last thing I'll say, as I take up way too much time, remember, you leave these spaces and you go and do this kind of panel for grad students and undergrads, and you tell them the same stuff. You need to turn some of that stuff onto yourself. It's still true for you, even at the postdoc level, and it will be even more true at the faculty level. If you weren't in high demand, you wouldn't even be on this call. You wouldn't have even been in graduate school. You have to remember your power and like stand firm in that. And what one man's trash is another man's treasure. So if they don't like it, that's fine. There are plenty of people who would be lucky to have any of you as postdocs. Never go into those spaces thinking that they are doing you a favor. They are not. The research doesn't move without you, and that's just that. So I just want you all to feel empowered. I think Antonio and Aileen are saying really, really important things. I just want to echo those things and also add to it that like you have power. We are desperate for postdocs because the pay is crap, but the productivity is fantastic. So in what world can you get such high quality stuff for such a cheap price? Yeah, no, they're knocking down doors to fight for you. So you should ask for what you want. And the worst they can do is say no. That's the worst that they can do. My 2 cents.
That deserves a mic drop. I almost think that we're done and can go home now, but fantastic. Thank you all. One thing that I'll add is that, as you're thinking about making that transition into postdocs and whose research group you want to work in, it takes a bit of self-reflection to think about what your actual mentorship needs are, because it'll be individual. It'll be tailored to your experiences and overall how you like to work and what your needs are. And so you got to take some time and really think about and catalog those needs so that you can form questions for the research groups that you're working with, the PIs, the lab members, and whoever else you get to interact with. And I just realized this book is right behind me. If anyone's read The Postdoc Landscape, this has a pretty good table on somewhere in it that has some really good considerations for you to think about when you're assessing your own mentorship needs, and then framing those into really direct questions. Because like Devin said, and like we've been reinforcing, you are in a position to ask these questions and make sure that you're finding the right environment for you. So switching over in our last part, and then we're happy to engage any additional questions with the remaining minutes. So feel free to put those in, or any comments that we can sort of highlight. So let's switch to the institutional side of postdoc hiring. What are some, we discussed some pretty good recruitment practices. Antonio's very actively involved with the one at Stanford, but what are some good engagement practices to help diversify the candidate pools? And then importantly, since we did touch on that a little bit already, how should institutions be building up their own communities to showcase their institutional culture to attract candidates? And for those that need a little work in there and building up their institutional cultures, what does that look like for retention? Antonio, you have not gone first yet. Let's throw it over to you.
Great question. It's also a very multifaceted one, so I'll definitely try to attack at least one of those points, and I'll hand that baton over to some of our other awesome panelists. I think for me, yes, looking at this from an institutional perspective is very important. I think the PRISM program, PRISM, Postdoctoral Recruitment Initiative in Sciences and Medicine, is one of the ways in which we've begun to do that work. It's one of the ways in which we've begun to really disrupt and really change academia in a positive way. So we realize that it's not just about who you know in terms of getting that postdoctoral appointment. It's not just about your current grad advisor knowing somebody at such and such's lab at this institution across the country. It actually is about the community that we've spoke to time and time again. It's about what particular environment is going to be best suited to bring you on as a researcher, but also to be able to help you to thrive in that postdoctoral appointment. So I think for us on the institutional side, we utilize PRISM as one of the ways to realize and help people to connect those dots. So that way they're not doing it individually or not doing it after the fact. So after you've signed your appointment letter, it's too late for you to realize if that's the right environment for you. You need to, and hopefully you're in a position to utilize programs. We've spoken to PRISM, we've spoken to a few other ones and such across the country, and really I'd say everywhere, that are going to offer up a great environment for postdocs. But if you can't go and visit that campus, or if you can't have an opportunity to really speak with people who are a part of it currently, it's maybe not the best first step, or at least not before you do some further research and such. So I do think it's very, very critical to continue to make sure that the institution has the resources, but also the opportunity to connect you to people who are really going to understand what the life of a postdoc is. So I think it's important to connect the institution to the work of the postdocs themselves, but also to make sure the institution has, if it is an option, an office, and also many people within said office to be able to support you. I know not every institution is in a position to be able to have a postdoc office. We truly have a luxury of resources in that regard, but we do realize that it's important to devote those resources if and when we're able.
Antonio was mid-sentence, a good sentence too. Give him about 5 seconds and see if he comes back. Devin, I was actually going to go to you next.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So I second and third and fourth everything that Antonio said. And one of the things, so I'm really familiar with the PRISM program because they recruited heavily at UC Davis because, you know, Stanford's just down the street. But I brought up the ERACTA program. UC has PPFP. I think one of the things, so if you think about sports, right, people, we know in the US, it seems like Black people dominated sports. And it isn't because we're especially good at them. It is because it's one of the few places where the playing field is mostly level, give or take here or there. Programs like PRISM and ERACTA and PPFP reduce the privilege advantage or the not first gen student advantage, right? It sort of levels the playing field. So everyone kind of starts at the same place. So I think if institutions could think about ways to implement these sort of postdoc application program protocols instead of these one-offs, I think that would be really, really helpful. If you already do that at your school, you need to figure out a protocol for being very, very clear about the experiences of postdocs at your institution. And one of the ways that you can demonstrate that is by allowing your potential postdoc to chat with other postdocs, not just the ones in the research group they're going to be in, but like have some sort of visitation. Now that we do everything virtual, some kind of virtual session where postdocs from different areas across campus can speak to their experiences. And that's really, really important for certain kinds of institutions. So Davis has a medical school and, you know, our regular campus. For all we know, folks on the med campus are having a wildly different experience than the folks on the main campus. So then we want our folks to be able to meet with all of these people so that they can actually get a better understanding of what's really happening. I think in general, graduate education, which means postdoc, which means faculty, it's not diverse. It's just not. And since we're never going to have the numbers, I don't think in my lifetime, what you have to demonstrate is your commitment to ensuring those people who are going to be in small numbers can come there and have a good experience, right? So you don't have to have, the goal is always to be working towards enhanced diversity. But if you don't have that at the moment, you should be able to demonstrate what you're doing to get there, or what you're doing to make the experience of the folks who are going to come there, make their experience good. That can look like having some sort of Postdoctoral Scholars Association where there's regularized engagement with postdocs, so they're not just flailing out there by themselves. Also, support for career development, grant writing. And to me, what's really, really key for postdocs is preventing abuse, particularly of minoritized and international postdocs. We all know what we're talking about here. And protocols for them to be able to report and avoid retaliation, because that's the problem, right? You can have everything going well, you can have all the policies in place, but we all know that on a one-on-one level, retaliation is insidious, it is invisible, and it's difficult to prove, but it happens and it pushes people out, and there's no ramifications for that. So you need to make sure at your institution that there's a process and a protocol for support, so that when postdocs come to complain, they don't have to worry about retaliation. And I'll just top it off with this. If your postdocs are complaining and it's the first time you're hearing about it, you've graduated a bunch of graduate students who probably really suffered. When the postdoc comes in, they're just picking up on things that have already been happening. And so I think they're really going to be key in making sure that, you know, our culture shifts that we're trying to promote on these campuses actually happen. They have a different perspective, a different vantage point. And I just think it's really important that we essentially protect them at all costs.
Absolutely. Thank you. Aileen, comments?
Yeah, I mean, everything that both Devin and Antonio said was incredible. I do want to emphasize the last part that Devin was just talking about. Not only having protocols, but having protocols that actually lead somewhere, like not just like surface things, like not just like, oh, we listened to you, we're so sorry this happened to you. And then there's actually nothing, there's no consequences, you're just stuck with your trauma, and everyone else just gets to keep on walking. And I know maybe that's easier said than done. I don't particularly think so, but you know, I know that there's always a lot of red tape and it's a lot to think about, but you know, we're not dumb. Like we can see right through all of your, you know, all of these, I don't know what term to use right now, but we can see through you. We can see through these different setups, these different mechanisms. We're not dumb, you know? And I think with all of that, just re-emphasizing, you can recruit all you want, but you're not going to keep people if you have a toxic culture. And I will say to institutions, your reputations precede you, and we all know it. This is something like these different like reputations that you have, they happen for a reason, right? It's a stereotype that you have, and it's for a reason. So just remember that. So if you're doing something that's performative, we know, we can see right through it, and it's important to recognize that, I think.
Forgot to unmute myself. Thank you. So we may have time for one question. And if I see a question pop up in the chat, I'll ask the panelists to give like a rapid fire 45-second answer to it. Meanwhile, while someone's thinking of that one question, Antonio, was there anything else that you wanted to add? Because you cut out like mid-sentence and you were going.
Certainly. I'm not quite sure what part I cut out at. I feel like I completed my thought and then saw everyone's frozen and it's like, oh, there is Zoom. But yet again, only thing I would add is definitely the importance of when you're doing this work, having a team of individuals who you do it alongside. And I think for myself, I know here at Stanford, it is critical for me to know that while I do a lot of important work for recruitment and also engagement, I do have a team of individuals, many of which who are on this call, that also do it alongside me. And the fact that I can bounce ideas and potentially learn just as many strategies and such from those folks helps me to be able to be a better professional, but also a better practitioner for those who we serve. So I think it's just as important to know when you're able to build allegiance inside of your office or inside of your department or wherever you can across that campus. So that way you can continue to do the important work that we're all speaking about and know that we're not doing it alone. I'm not on this panel because I am a one-man band or a one-stop shop. I actually have quite a few folks who really help me to be able to hone in on what I can do and how I can do it well.
Awesome. Do any of you have recommendations for increasing engagement in the post-pandemic environment? That's a good one. All right. Rapid fire.
So this is something that we're working on really, really hard at Davis. Frankly, I just approach the postdocs the way I approach undergrads or like kindergartners at this point. No disrespect, but just what do people like to do for fun? Let's just do that. Honestly, people like to eat, feed them. If people like watching movies, rent a movie. Just honestly, they are busy. They don't have time. I'm sure Aileen can speak to this as a current postdoc, and I just try my best to meet them where they are. So I create activities and events that are really low stakes, but high food, being honest.
Or try to align it with some aspect of wellness, because that's what we find that we all need
Yes.
at this stage, post-pandemic, or even if it's post at this point. Our postdoc association at Georgetown did a outdoor hike as part of NPA. And so that was nice, and it was very different.
I think to that point, if I can add, just the importance of showcasing appreciation all year round, if you're able to. I do think, yes, food is always great. I know our postdocs love to eat and have snacks and treats and all the other points and such, but I definitely think we've also partnered with folks such as the NIH to have webinars on resilience and actually building some of that wellness that we just spoke to. So those are opportunities for them to engage virtually. Yes, I do think obviously it's nice to be able to come together in person as well. But for us, we've used some of those virtual gatherings as a chance to also then follow up in person with food or with some of the other incentives and such to go along with it. So figuring out what it is that your campus is in need of, and sometimes it could be just support or strategies or connecting to other resources across the nation.
Aileen, anything to add before I close this out?
Yeah, I think what all of that said too is being aware that what works for one postdoc group doesn't work for the next one. So I think reassessing every year. I know it's hard to do more than that, but at least reassessing every year, because we filter in and out so much. So some people, it's really taking into account what the postdocs are saying to you, and meeting with them. And I will say, like, the Office of Postdoc Affairs here and the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at the School of Medicine are both really good with making us feel, giving us a seat at the table and making our voices actually feel heard. That goes a really, really long way as well.
Excellent. Well, I was told to start doing my closing remarks at 3 minutes, and so it is 3 minutes. And so we are right on time. Thank you all for keeping us on our toes. So I'd like to thank you all. I really enjoyed working with you on this panel leading up to it, and especially right now throughout our discussion. Thanks for sharing your expertise. Thanks for sharing your experiences and being vulnerable with the audience today. So just a reminder to the audience that if you aren't a member of the NPA yet, you can join us. It's free if your institution has an institutional membership. So you just want to check the NPA website to find out about that. And so thank you for your interest in promoting racial and ethnic equity in the postdoctoral community and beyond. The next Zoom session will start in 10 minutes past the hour. So once again, be sure to enter the new Zoom room to access that session. And with that, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the summit, and I will see you around.
Thanks for having us, Caleb.
My pleasure.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
See ya.
you. Bye.